Hello and welcome as we explore 2 days in Vienna on our Viking River cruise. We are near the end of our grand European vacation with only Budapest left to go. That said, I'm going to approach this video a little bit differently. You see, Viking has 7 different cruises that spend 1 or more days in Vienna. Each of those cruises has a number of day excursions that are available. There is a total of 17 excursions available between the 7 cruises. That leaves me with a bit of a challenge as to how to show you all the sites that are available on these day excursions. So what I have done is group these day excursions into categories. Each category then will contain sites for 1 or more day excursions from all 7 cruises. We start with a panoramic tour of Vienna and follow that with the palaces of Imperial Vienna, and then go on to the music of Vienna. There are a wealth of art galleries and museums, and we'll also explore coffee shops and other delights. We'll explore the religious aspects of Vienna as well as their festive delights, including Christmas and New Year's. Then we'll have a little extra, which is not included in any of the tours. Before we get started, I want to embark on a little German lesson, and that has to do with the name of the city. Vienna is in German Wien. You will no doubt encounter more than one glass of wine during your stay, but how do you order it in German? Well, it sounds very much like the American wine, except the W is pronounced as a V, so it's a vine. Or you simply remember that grapes grow on vines. Now wait a minute, this is a bit confusing, as the name of the city is Wien. There is a difference between the two. The trick is the 2-letter combination. EI is always pronounced I, and IE is E, so the second letter of the combination determines the sound. So now you're all set to go out and order some Wiener Schnitzel. Whatever you do, don't order Wiener Schnitzel, you'll never know what you get. All right, now with all the preliminaries out of the way, we're ready to begin our first tour, and that is a tour around the Altstadt. The Altstadt means the old part of the city. So this tour combines 3 shore excursions from the cruises: Panoramic Vienna, Jewels of Vienna's Ring, and Vienna Sites Up Close. We start with a ride around the Ringstrasse, which is in fact a circle around the Altstadt. The Ringstrasse was built on top of the remains of the old city walls, and that started sometime in the 19th century. What we will now do is take a flying tour around the Ringstrasse and point out some of the sights that you will see along the way. And the first is the Vienna Opera, the Wiener Staatsoper. Looking from street level, we see the Ringstrasse up close with its marvelous transportation system, and then we turn to look at the Opera House itself. The Opera House is one of the first buildings to be built on the Ringstrasse in the 1860s. The Opera House was heavily damaged during World War II, but it was reconstructed and reopened in 1955. If you have a chance, you should really try to see a production. As we continue traveling up the ring, I want to point out the Leopold Museum in the upper left-hand corner. We'll talk more about that when we do the museum section. We make a 45-degree turn to the right, and on our left side we come across the Fine Arts Museum as well as the Natural History Museum. We will talk more about the interior of these beautiful places in the museum section later. The museums sit on either side of the Maria Theresa statue, which is right in the center of the square. Empress Maria Theresa was a revered Habsburg ruler who reigned from 1740 to 1780. There are also equestrian statues of prominent Austrian military leaders on either side of the monument. We leave the square behind and proceed up the ring and make another half-right turn where we encounter the public buildings of the city. We go by the Palace of Justice and focus on the Parliament building. This is a neoclassical building which is the seat of Austrian democracy and houses the National Council and the Federal Council. It was restored in 2023 and is now guarded by the goddess Athena. Directly across the street from the Parliament is the Volksgarten, the People's Garden. The park was constructed in 1823 as part of the Ringstrasse development. A neoclassical Greek temple stands at the center of the garden. There is a marvelous rose garden, and during the summer, outdoor concerts are held here. This shot of the garden was taken from the roof of the Burgtheater, which is our next stop, and it also gives you a great view of City Hall, which is coming up soon. So the Burgtheater is right next to the Volksgarten and right across from the City Hall. And it was founded in 1741 by Empress Maria Theresa, making it one of the oldest theaters in continuous operation worldwide. Now, it primarily performs in German, but when we were there in 2019, they were actually performing Noises Off, which we had just seen in Chicago. Across the street, you will see a Gothic gem, which is the Rathaus, the city hall, and was constructed in the late 19th century as part of the Ringstrasse development. It has a central tower that reaches a height of 98 meters, but on top of the tower is the Rathausmann, an iron statue holding the city flag, and it was added to make the tower higher than the nearby votive church, which was limited by Emperor Franz Joseph to 99 meters. The courtyard is a popular spot for open-air events, exhibitions, and Christmas markets, and I'll show you that in another video about New Year's and Christmas in Vienna. Now, continuing up the ring past the Rathaus, we have a couple things on the left-hand side that are of interest. The first is the University of Vienna. The university was founded in 1365, and it's the oldest university in the German-speaking world and one of the oldest continuously operating universities in Europe. The historic university buildings are scattered throughout Vienna, but the main campus is located right here. Right behind the university is the neo-Gothic votive church. The church was dedicated in 1879 on the 25th anniversary of Emperor Franz Joseph's reign with his wife, Empress Elizabeth, Sisi. The church is open to the public and admission is free of charge. While not on the ring itself, nearby is the Sigmund Freud Museum, and it's open to the public as well if you're interested in his works. As we go by the university, we continue on the Ringstrasse towards the Danube Canal. Now, there isn't a lot to see on this part of the Ringstrasse, so we'll just take it quickly and get to the next turn. As we turn away from the Danube Canal, we see another branch of the University of Vienna, and it is the School of Applied Arts and Sciences. There is a museum which covers a wide range of applied arts, including furniture, glass, ceramics, textiles, and metalwork. A little further down the street is the Stadtpark, which was established in 1862 along with the Ringstrasse improvement. The park contains one of the most photographed sites in all of Vienna, and that's the Johann Strauss Denkmal, a tribute to Johann Strauss II. A couple other composers are highlighted here, including Franz Schubert and Anton Bruckner. The Vienna River flows through the park, and there's a nice pathway along it, plus there's lots of places to relax and just enjoy the scenery. At the end of the park is the Kursalon, which is a historic concert hall in which Richard Strauss himself conducted. We continue down the tree-lined Ringstrasse past the Stadtpark, and as we reach the next turn, I want to stop and call something to your attention that is not on the Ringstrasse, and that's Karlsplatz. The plaza is so named because at one end of the plaza is Karlskirche, which is dedicated to St. Charles Borromeo, who was associated with healing and a patron saint of the emperor who dedicated this church in 1713 as gratitude for the end of the plague in Europe. Inside, you can take an elevator up to the dome and get terrific views of the city. Now, as we turn, we can see across from Karlsplatz two significant buildings that are also worth a visit. The first is the Albertina Modern. This museum opened in 2020, and I'll talk more about it in subsequent videos. Right next door is the Musikverein Wien, which is where the Vienna Philharmonic plays their annual New Year's concerts. I'll cover some more of that when I talk about music in Vienna. Turning back to Karlsplatz, we see the Otto Wagner Pavilion. This originally was a station for the underground, but is now converted into a museum for a display of Otto's Art Nouveau works. Very near Karlsplatz is a museum called Secession, and this is where contemporary artists in the 1900s seceded from the traditional artwork, and it includes artists like Gustav Klimt. The sign above the door says, "To every age its art, and to every art its freedom." We turn away from Karlsplatz and go back to the Ringstrasse, and you can see it's a little distance from the Ringstrasse to Karlsplatz, but it's just a short distance right back to the Opera House where we started, and now it's time to go for a walk. There are two major attractions right behind the Opera House, one of which is the Hotel Sacher, and the other is the Albertina Museum. I'll talk about the museum in a bit. The luxurious Hotel Sacher was founded in 1876 and lays claim to be the home of the Sacher-Torte. There's a nice PBS series that talks about the woman running the Hotel Sacher at the turn of the century. Here's the Hotel Sacher right behind the Opera House, and that is the Mozart Cafe with the awnings. Now we turn towards the Albertina Museum. I will talk in depth about the Albertina in another video covering the museums. There are a couple things within walking distance of the Albertina, and that's the Augustiner Church and the Jewish Museum. The church contains some of the remains of the Habsburg, and the Jewish Museum is worth visiting, and I'll cover both of these in subsequent videos. Let's return to the Opera and the Ring and start walking up one of the many pedestrian zones that the city has to offer, and this will take us up a street named Kärtner Street. Take your wallet with you, as there are plenty of places to shop, as well as eat or even drink. The street ends up at Stephansplatz. Stephansplatz, right in the heart of the Altstadt, and is a transportation hub, and is so named because of Stephan's Dome, the Cathedral of St. Stephen. This Gothic cathedral is well known for its striking tiled roof. It originated in the 12th century and is a center for worship for the city of Vienna. If you're feeling energetic, you can climb the South Tower for striking views of the entire city. If you're feeling hungry after you climb the tower, I heartily recommend the Cafe Conditorei Aida, which has tremendous desserts. We next turn and look down the Graben. Graben means ditch, and it was built on the remains of an old Roman ditch. I had mentioned the Cafe Conditorei Aida, but if you're really wanting something American, you can always go to Five Guys right here on the Graben. Again, there are lots of places to eat as well as shop, with a lot of high-end stores on the Graben itself. And if the weather's good, sit outside and enjoy a snack. In the middle of the Graben is a monument that was commissioned by Emperor Leopold in 1679 to commemorate the end of the plague epidemic that swept through Vienna. Emperor Leopold is depicted at the bottom of the monument, giving thanks for relief from the plague. A little further down the Graben is Peterskirche, St. Peter's Cathedral, which is Baroque, but was founded on a site dedicated by Charlemagne in the 9th century. We are nearing the end of the Graben, but there's still opportunity to spend some money on chocolate or pens. Here at the end, you'll find the Austrian equivalent of the First National Bank. But I do have a recommendation. If you ever come back to Vienna on your own and want to stay someplace, I highly recommend this Pension Nosek. Not only is it on the Graben, but it's also close to Louis Vuitton, Julius Meinl, and Cartier. Here you can get not only fine coffee, but it's actually a grocery store. And then as we turn to look down the next street, we can see the Hofburg at the end of the street. The Hofburg is a historic palace complex in the heart of Vienna, and it's the former imperial residence of the Habsburg dynasty. There are always lots of visitors right in front of the palace, but you can take some time to look at some of the Roman ruins that are right in front of the entrance. You can get a horse-drawn carriage in front of the palace, and it's called a flaker. Yes, I'm not kidding, it's a flaker. Some of the Viking excursions include a ride on a flaker. As you walk through the archways, you get an idea of the grandeur of the place, and you may also see where the Spanish riding school is, and you can see the chapel of the Hofburg, where on Sunday mornings the Vienna choir boys sing Mass. There are a number of interior courtyards, and then you come out on the other side to a large square. Today, the Hofburg is the official residence and workplace of the President of Austria. Now let's see how close everything really is by taking a little flight from the back of the Hofburg from the bird garden. As we take off, the first thing you do is get a bird's eye view of a bird. They seem to be fascinated with drones. As we turn, you get an idea of the elegance of the Hofburg itself, but we also see the glass enclosure of the Schmetterling House, which is a butterfly house in Art Nouveau style, which is worth going to see. Plus, there's a little cafe to have lunch. Now, as we rise above the back of the Hofburg, you get a good look from here at Maria Theresa Platz with the two museums, and then Parliament, the Rathaus, the Volksgarten, the Burgtheater, and in the distance, the votive church. Looking in the other direction, you can see the Stephansdom, in the foreground, the Albertina, the Hotel Zacher, and the Opera House. Well, this finishes up our little tour of Vienna around the Altstadt. Vienna is such a wonderful city, and there's so much to cover, so I'm going to break up these videos into groups, and please subscribe so you can see when these new videos are posted and you can be kept up to date. Thanks.